What if the biggest prison in your life is not your job, not your lack of money, not your past, but your own mind? Think about it carefully. From the moment we are born, society hands us a script for how life is supposed to work. First, you study hard, then you get a good job, then you earn money, then you buy a house, get married, raise children, grow old, and eventually leave the world behind. Most people spend their entire lives following this path without ever stopping to ask one terrifying question. Am I truly living freely, or am I simply following a program given to me by the world? Today, I want to explore one of the deepest ideas found in Buddhist wisdom, the illusion of control. Because many people believe they are in charge of their lives while secretly being controlled by desires, emotions, social expectations, and endless craving. And once you truly understand this, your entire perspective on happiness may change forever. Let's start with something simple. Imagine a child being born into the world. Immediately, society begins shaping that child's mind. The child is given a name, then comes school, exams, competition, expectations. The child slowly learns what society calls success. Good grades become important, then career status becomes important, then appearance becomes important, then money becomes important. And after years of conditioning, most people no longer know what they truly want. They only know what they were taught to want. That is the frightening part. Many people spend their entire lives chasing things they never consciously chose for themselves. Think about this carefully. Why do you like certain clothes? Why is one color your favorite color? Why does one song feel beautiful while another feels meaningless? Why do some people believe luxury means happiness while others believe simplicity means peace? Most of these preferences did not appear naturally. They were shaped slowly by culture, advertising, trends, family influence, social media, and emotional experiences. Society hands us invisible definitions for beauty, success, attraction, and happiness, and without realizing it, we absorb them into our identity. And once the mind accepts those definitions, desire is born. Suddenly we feel incomplete without certain things. We believe we need more money to feel secure, more attention to feel valuable, more success to feel respected, more possessions to feel accomplished. But here is the deeper question Buddhism asks. What happens if the mind itself is creating the suffering? Because no matter how much people achieve, many still remain restless inside. Someone gets the dream job, yet anxiety continues. Someone becomes wealthy, yet still feels empty. Someone finds love, yet still fears loss and loneliness. Why? Because external things can never create permanent happiness. And modern society quietly trains us to believe the opposite. Advertisements constantly tell us happiness is waiting somewhere outside ourselves. Buy this product, own this car, achieve this status, look this way, live this lifestyle, then you will finally be happy. But if happiness truly came from possessions, then the richest people on earth would never feel depressed. If happiness came from relationships alone, nobody in love would ever suffer emotionally. If happiness came from success, famous people would never struggle with emptiness. Yet we know none of that is true. This is why so many people feel trapped even after achieving what they once dreamed about. Because desire has no finish line. The mind always says just one more thing. One more achievement, one more relationship, one more purchase, one more victory, one more moment of validation. And without realizing it, life becomes an endless cycle of chasing temporary emotional highs. Now, this does not mean we should reject life or avoid ambition. Buddhism does not teach hopelessness, it teaches awareness. There is nothing wrong with enjoying life. The danger begins when we become emotionally dependent on external things for our happiness. Because anything external can disappear at any moment. Money can vanish, beauty fades, relationships change, health declines, status disappears, even the people we love most cannot stay forever. And this is where suffering begins, not because change exists, but because we desperately try to hold on to things that are naturally temporary. Think about how fragile most happiness really is. A person says, "I'm happy," then suddenly they receive bad news, a relationship ends, someone becomes sick, a financial problem appears, instantly that happiness collapses. So was it true peace or only temporary comfort? Real inner peace is different. It is not built on conditions. It does not depend entirely on what happens outside. And this is one of the hardest truths for modern society to accept. We have become addicted to stimulation. People cannot sit quietly for even a few minutes without reaching for their phone. Silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels strange. The mind constantly searches for distraction because deep down, many people are afraid to face themselves. That is why ancient spiritual traditions placed so much importance on mindfulness and self-awareness. Because when you begin observing your mind honestly, something shocking becomes clear. Most thoughts, cravings, fears, and emotional reactions happen automatically. Someone criticizes you, and anger appears instantly. Someone praises you, and attachment appears instantly. Someone else succeeds, and comparison appears instantly. Most people are not consciously choosing these reactions, they are simply happening. And this is why the Buddha compared uncontrolled desire to slavery. Not slavery created by another person, but slavery created inside the mind itself. The person controlled by craving is never truly free because their emotions are constantly being controlled by external conditions. Now here's where this becomes incredibly practical. Look at how much of your life is shaped by emotional dependency. Many people cannot feel valuable unless others approve of them. Some cannot feel peaceful unless everything goes according to plan. Others cannot feel secure unless they constantly accumulate more money, more attention, more achievements. But the more your happiness depends on outside conditions, the more fragile your peace becomes. That is why even successful people often remain emotionally exhausted. They are carrying endless psychological pressure. They are terrified of losing what they built. And ironically, the more attached we become to temporary things, the more anxiety we create for ourselves. This is why Buddhist wisdom repeatedly points inward. Not because the outside world is evil, but because lasting peace cannot be permanently found there. Real freedom begins when you stop allowing every external event to control your emotional state. Imagine how powerful it would feel if your peace was not constantly controlled by praise, criticism, gain, loss, success, or failure. That is true inner strength. And perhaps this is why many people spend decades searching for happiness without finding it. They are searching in the wrong direction. They search outward while ignoring the condition of their own mind. Now, of course, none of this is easy. Human beings naturally crave comfort, security, and emotional pleasure. That is part of our nature. But wisdom begins when we recognize the difference between enjoyment and attachment. You can enjoy life without becoming imprisoned by it. You can appreciate relationships without making another person responsible for your entire happiness. You can work hard and pursue goals without believing achievement alone will complete you. This balance is what creates emotional freedom. And maybe the most important realization of all is this. You do not have to believe every desire your mind creates. Just because the mind says, "I need this to be happy," does not automatically make it true. Sometimes the greatest freedom comes not from getting everything you want, but from no longer needing so much in order to feel at peace. That is why some people with very little can feel deeply content, while others surrounded by luxury remain internally miserable. Peace is an inner condition, not a product, not a social status, not an image, an inner condition. And the moment people truly understand this, life begins to change. Because they stop chasing happiness like a moving target and start developing awareness instead. They become less controlled by trends, less manipulated by comparison, less emotionally dependent on temporary experiences. They begin living more consciously. And maybe that is what real control actually means. Not controlling the entire world around you, but learning not to be controlled by every thought, every craving, every emotion, and every outside influence. That is the beginning of freedom. Thank you for listening, and if this message resonated with you, take a moment today to observe your own mind honestly. Notice how often your happiness depends on external things. That awareness alone can become the first step toward a more peaceful life.